My name's Arthur Keefer. I'm a Presbyterian Minister at the Scots Church in Melbourne and an Honorary Research Fellow at the University of Divinity.
Arthur, good to see you. Welcome to Exegetically Speaking.
Great to be here.
Yeah, thanks for doing this. We're in Yarnton, which is just north of Oxford, at our project, the Linear Project here, and we're doing this podcast with Wheaton College, and you're going to become a part of it from Melbourne, and we'll do it face to face, which I love. But again, thanks so much.
Yeah.
How did you get started reading biblical languages?
I got started reading biblical languages by reading my English Bible, actually, and I was interning at a church. I was really interested and recently energized by studying my Bible, including in an academic context, and I realized I had questions that my English translation couldn't answer, or English translations.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I was reading Paul, and I thought I really want to know what he means in this verse or in this chapter, and I had a sense that there's got to be something else behind this. I knew there were, of course, languages behind the English translation, but I thought those languages could give some clearer answers to my questions.
And have they been able to do that?
They have been. Of course, they don't solve everything, and I have new questions now that I can no longer answer.
Right? Yeah. Now we're here. You're here for a conference that's going on with a number of scholars who've come from around the world to talk about the book of Proverbs, or aphorisms in the wisdom tradition. And we're going to talk about one of those today, in Proverbs 15. So to set the table for us, what are we looking at with these Proverbs?
Yeah, we've been talking a bit this week on wisdom broadly and spiritual formation. And a lot of that does have to do with the aphorisms, the sayings, the Proverbs in the book of Proverbs. I've been thinking about these. Actually, I'm speaking about how to preach the Proverbs, and that, of course, makes me dig into individual Proverbs as well. But looking at Proverbs 15:12, actually, it says, "A scoffer does not like to be reproved. He will not go to the wise."
So this is an example of the parallelism that we see often in Hebrew poetry, generally speaking, where we have two negative statements being made, kind of in parallel, and both, would you say, interpret each other, or both expand upon each other?
Yeah, there is something like that going on. So, the first one is a little more general. A scoffer doesn't like to be reproved. The Hebrew word there is actually a word that's normally translated, almost always, as love. The scoffer does not love. The KJV says, loveth not reproof.
Ahav is the Hebrew word, right?
That's right. That's right.
When I think of the word, you have those vocabulary cards when you get started reading in any language, right? Yeah. I remember the word ahav, and I remember the word love on the other side of the card.
Yeah. My trick when learning Hebrew vocabulary and Greek was I always had some sort of impression that the sound of the word always gave me an initial impression, almost always. Okay. Ahav. And so I thought, do I have love? Ahav. I have.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Anyway, that was my trick for that one.
Your little mnemonic trick.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah, we need those.
And the second line in the proverb then I think gives something more concrete. It specifies this dislike or lack of love for reproof. So the scoffer doesn't like reproof, does not love reproof. He will not go to the wise. So it's as if going to the wise, approaching these wise people, is for the scoffer going to mean he's going to face some difficult feedback that he doesn't want to get.
So the scoffer here obviously is the fool on one side.
A type. Yep.
You've got a fool and a wise man in a way, and the one who scoffs. Does that the idea of not loving and reproof obviously is that which sort of brings a negative feeling, self-feeling, right? Kind of thing. And with the word scoffer there, when you think of that, what does that conjure up for you?
It's, so in Proverbs, there are various types of good and bad people. And they are these character types. Think about them like caricatures in a newspaper cartoon, over-exaggerated versions of maybe people that we meet in real life. And so, the scoffer has a connotation of maybe someone who's just negative and put off by things, is going to just sort of disdain the people that he comes across. So you get the fool, you get the wicked person, the one who loves violence, different things like that. So this is one kind of shade
caricature
of
that person.
Yeah.
So and reproof goes along with being at some point wise.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because to be wise means that you must be at some point reproved. Set back.
That's right. I think there are other proverbs that say the wise person loves reproof, actually. And so reproof being correction, instruction, sometimes it's harsh. It's correction to get back on the right path in life. And other times maybe it's just slightly gentler. You're headed in the right direction, but here's a bit more encouragement.
So you're on a new Bible translation committee, and you're charged with giving us a rendition of this Proverbs 15:12. So how does it read from your translation?
The scoffer does not love being reproved. He will not go to the wise. I think that's what I would go with.
Okay. All right. He will not go to the wise. Well, that's similar to what we see in the ESV. Do you like the ESV translation?
I do like the ESV.
Except for the like and love thing.
Except for the like. Though as I say that, and the ESV does this is in its... So that does not like and will not go are the same form of the verbs.
Yeah.
So we might say broadly the same tense or something, which isn't really correct when we're talking about Hebrew necessarily. So either of those can mean the scoffer isn't in the habit of liking reproof, isn't in the habit of going to the wise.
I see.
But it could also mean will not. He will not go, and he will not like interest. So the ESV again makes that choice between we're gonna take the same type of verb, but we're gonna translate it differently.
We're almost out of time, but let's talk a little bit about the sound of this in Hebrew, because in addition, Proverbs, in addition to sort of having a parallelism, will often have a characteristic sound that goes with them as well, something that makes it memorable.
Yeah. Do you want me to read it?
Yeah, go ahead and read it.
Yeah. Lo ye'ahav leitz hokeach lo. So that's the first line. Lo ye'ahav leitz hokeach lo. Second line is el chachamim lo yelek. El chachamim lo yelek. So you get 3 la sounds in both lines, actually.
Oh, okay.
So you get, over the course of the whole proverb, you get these 6 lamids or la kind of sounds. Yeah.
And I think that's one of those things that helps people to, the sound, the repetition of sound, helps people to remember things, right?
Yeah.
We see that in English.
We do. Even in our own Proverbs, no pain, no gain is a good example of that one.
Right.
And I'm sure there's some other ones that I can't think of off the top of my head.
Sure.
But we absolutely do. We do that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so without knowing Hebrew, you really don't get that piece of it, right?
Exactly.
Right.
No, not at all.
Yeah. Interesting reading of this text. Thanks so much for being with us today, Arthur, on Exegetically Speaking.
Thanks, David.
Thanks again to Arthur Keefer for being with us here on Exegetically Speaking. We're winding down season number 5. It's so great to see young scholars adept at the language as he is. If you want to be like Arthur, and who wouldn't, check out the show notes for how you can study Greek and Hebrew at Wheaton College. It's number 1 in my book. Thanks to our Wheaton-based team, ably led by Dr. John Lonsma. Thanks to Phil Kegi for our music. Until next time, I'm David Capes. So thank you for listening.